FestivalsConnect project is a project funded by Spirit of 2012, and they're interested in the ways in which festivals and events might connect communities. Our project looked at actually the way in which festivals and events can make a contribution to equality, diversity and inclusion outcomes. So, how can you use a festival, whether that's a music festival, a cultural festival, a sporting festival, to bring people together, but also to advance agendas that might include people from different minority ethnic communities and people of different sexuality, gender, all involved in the festival and events context. So ways in which those events could be used as a way of advancing some of the agendas around about equality, diversity and inclusion. We chose to look at the UCI Cycling World Championships, which is an event that took place in Glasgow in Scotland 2023. They wanted to say, we're going to use a sport event which has a lot of interest, a lot of attention, a lot of investment on it, to drive forward an agenda around about specifically women and young girls being more involved in cycling, minority ethnic communities being more involved in cycling, people with disabilities having more opportunity to be involved in cycling. So what the UCI Cycling wished to do was to promote those opportunities as a legacy of the event. So we were interested in exploring in depth really to what extent through the way in which the event was planned, the way in which the event was delivered, that was actually followed through on. So it might be that a club for people with disabilities, so a good example is the Tandem Club in Glasgow, which is for those with visual impairments. Did those clubs receive funding? Did they receive support? Did they receive other benefits from being involved in the event that can actually make them more sustainable? Because then at the end of that, you probably have the opportunity to have a participation legacy, and a legacy where the investment in the event has actually benefited those particular populations that you're targeting. And so Glasgow Mela is a gathering, so that's the tradition in the South Asian communities, and Glasgow since 1990 has had a Mela and attracts 30 to 40,000 people every year.
Glasgow Mela has always been one of those kind of family orientated events where everyone comes together, mixed cultures from Asian backgrounds and African backgrounds, Glaswegian. When you see diversity, Glasgow is probably number one for diversity. It's always been very open for all cultures and communities.
In case of Mela, the Mela organizers are from the community. They know the problems, the conflicts and the intricacies of religious, caste, color and even the LGBTQ issues and cultural things. When we talk about diversity, there are intricate complexities even within the South Asian communities. For example, there are different caste dynamics. There are different castes existing within one country. There are different colors. There are different religions even within South Asian countries. An interesting thing about Mela was how do they plan? I've talked about the addressing of that intricate complexities which exist, like minorities. There are minorities within minorities. So it was encouraging to see that the organizers are sensitized about these things. When we conducted interviews from the Mela attendees, people were saying, I feel like I'm in my own village today, in Punjab today. And there were people from Bangladesh who were enjoying their history, their books, their literature, and the music from different regions of South Asia, within South Asia, different languages from within South Asia. These type of things were there, and everyone was happy to have their kind of music, their kind of language, and their kind of identity they could relate to, along with that togetherness which was there.
What I'm celebrating here today is experiencing other cultures and seeing like what's in the community.
I've always gone to the Mela when it's on, and I have seen it develop over the years.
I can remember there used to be a lot of Indian, Pakistani community. Over the year it's developed, and now there's a lot more Bangladeshi community, also Middle Eastern as well, a lot of Afghanistan, Iraqi.
Every kind of culture is mixed in now.
Much more wider population I think is here, very kind of melting pot kind of environment, and it's beautiful to see. I think it's good to see people from all over the world having a good time and coming together.
One of the things that we did with FestivalsConnect was really try to engage with a wide range of partners and beneficiaries from the project. we really set this project up to be impactful in a number of ways. So we ran a series of co-creation workshops, for example, with organisations that run festivals and events, so the organisers of festivals and events, to talk to them and to learn from them about how EDI, equality, diversity and inclusion agendas, are built into their festivals and events.
During our co-creation workshops, a phrase came up, who is in the room? And this phrase was part of like when planning the event, when the event is being organized, designed and funding phase and all. So legacy even. So who is in the room is very important. If the people who are not from the community are not part of the planning of the event, it will be tokenistic. It is not going to bring that equality, diversity and inclusion outputs which we are actually looking into.
We are really passionate about EDI, and events are such an important part of our communities. It's such an important part of what we do in Scotland, and it brings people together. So today we've had the opportunity to talk about how do we plan that right from the get-go, having representation from people who understand EDI, who can inform that planning.
We worked with the outcomes of that project, the content that we generated, and we developed what we're calling a playbook. And that playbook is a kind of easily accessible, well-designed guide that supports and advises people. If you want to be running a festival and event and you want it to be more EDI compliant, that playbook includes lots of case studies from various festival and events, it includes statutory information about what you need to do, but it also provides you with advice and guidance on what you might want to do if you want to be showing that you're committed to an EDI agenda. We also produced what we call an evidence review. So that's available and free to access from anyone. So that again, we're contributing to a debate about how equality, diversity and inclusion can be more effectively embedded within the festival and events sector. So those are the kind of outputs that we would then argue lead to the sort of outcomes that we want to see, which is that festival and events actually use the information, the guidance, the evidence that we're presenting and actually build that into improvements in their own festivals and events so that they become more open to a wider range of people, as I said, as audiences potentially, but also importantly, I think, in the organisation of those events.
It was encouraging to see how policymakers, how event organizers, diversity and cultural event organizers came and they were coming up with the suggestions, and those all suggestions are there in our playbook.
And we're fortunate to have good support from some of our partners, so Glasgow Life, which is the sport and cultural provider in the city of Glasgow. They've supported and endorsed that work, so they're going to help us share that playbook, along with Visit Scotland and Event Scotland, which is the national events agency, and obviously Spirit of 2012 also is a national organisation that has a wide reach in terms of its dissemination. Then that enables us to take the outputs, share them more widely, and that will hopefully contribute to the development of the outcomes that we want to see from the project.
But the most important thing which I felt during those co-creation workshops was it initiated a discussion towards what are the elements which could be taken care of. As I've mentioned, the phrase, who should be in the room.
Who's represented by the festival in terms of audience, but also an organisation. How you can design and programme the festival to make sure that it attracts and is inclusive, but also about how you can fund and resource those festivals to make sure that you actually do put money into making sure EDI is important, because if you don't, you won't get there. And finally, how do you learn from what you've done each year in a festival and event to make sure that next year, how do you build in evaluation to make sure that you actually improve year on year in terms of your ambitions around about EDI?
So these are the things which any diversity event or festival which is being organized could take lead from.